Hello everybody, welcome to Hope and Healing at Home's Art Therapy Live today. I have a fun little scene for you guys to enjoy right here. Some of my favorite winter decorations at my mom's house. Still dog sitting, house sitting, which is a great treat because there's a lake view and fireplace you can turn on with the flip of a switch. So I'm feeling a little bit spoiled this week. I'm enjoying getting out her art supplies. So today I thought we would focus on perspective. I know I wanted to kind of keep February focused on hearts, mending hearts, sending love, taking care of our own hearts, connecting the hearts of those we love. And this is an exercise not typically done necessarily with that specific goal in mind, but that's one thing I love about art therapy is you can kind of alter and tweak things to fit whatever you need them to that day. So I think this is a super powerful exercise, and there's a lot of different ways to talk about it, about taking perspective, about looking at things from different points of views. And specifically when I was thinking about ways to mend hearts, I was thinking about in our families. How often we get in arguments because we fail to see the thing from their perspective. So if you're feeling a little estranged from someone today, it might be a good thing to keep them in mind as we go through this activity. I was looking some things up online and I got looking onto airplane crashes. And I don't do that to scare anybody, because here I'll just give you these stats. And my brother is a pilot, and he used to be terrified of flying, which is kind of an interesting perspective shift in and of itself. But I don't want to scare you about plane crashes. I don't want to scare you at all. So here's a couple little stats just to start out with before I go into this other bit here. The odds of dying in a plane crash are 1 in 200,000. The odds of dying in a bicycle crash are 1 in 4,000. And the odds of dying in a car crash are 1 in 100. So we all typically think our cars are pretty safe. So please don't freak out about these stories of airplanes that I want to share here. And the reason I share these is because I think it's an important or an interesting comparison when we're thinking about perspective and how important it is to look at the whole picture and have all of the facts taken into consideration, and to make sure that we're looking at things that are true, that are real, and not allowing ourselves to go off of a misperception that we have. So 5 to 10% of all aviation accidents, of which 90% of those are very fatal, are attributed to spatial disorientation. And that is when there is confusion by the pilots about the angle they're flying at, the altitude they're flying at, the speed they're going at, and it's typically caused in poor weather or at night when visibility is bad. This is one reason my brother's like, this is why they do the blindfold test. Basically, they put you in your airplane when you're learning to fly, and they put a hood over you, so you literally can't see anything outside, and all you can do is trust the instruments. Because everything in your body wants to tell you not to trust them, but to be safe, to survive that flight, you have to trust the instruments, you have to trust the facts, even when everything around you is telling you not to. And there's actually 3 different systems in our bodies that are affected by spatial disorientation. Again, that's altitude, speed, and angle. The things that mess us up, or mess pilots up, and I think this can happen to all of us in different scenarios. I just picked airplanes today. There's an auditory system, so what we're hearing. Obviously there's the visual system, what we're seeing. There's the vestibular system, the inner ear, which really affects our balance, and then see if I can say this right, the proprioceptive system, which are things in our skin, our muscles, our tendons and our joints. Did you know that your balance had, like in our bodies, all those things were affected, and they help us maintain our balance? So just a couple things to think on. Seems probably really unrelated to therapy, but it's interesting to me. I always like looking at different parallels and different analogies because I feel like for me it helps me understand the concept better. So one thing I wanted to bring out today, and the reason I have these fun little decorations from my mom out, is because I thought they were a good analogy of perspective. So when you look at this scene, it looks like a real just nice little winter scene, right? The parent snowman is pulling all the little snowmen or people with them on a sled, and there's, I don't know if you can, sorry, part of my screen is blocked right now, and there's a bunny on this toboggan, and also if you look under them, their Christmas tree is on there. If you look from the bunny's perception, you might see the tree and one little snow person. If you look from this little snow person's perspective, they are looking at the bunny that's kind of hidden by part of the tree. If you look from this one's perspective, you're going to see out that way, and you're going to see the whole world sliding by sideways, right? This little snow person might actually think they're in control of where the toboggan's going because they're hanging on to the front of the toboggan, they're looking where they're going, they're holding on to the strings. But we know when we zoom out that the adult snowman, snow person, is the one in charge of where this toboggan goes, and putting a lot of effort into pulling the toboggan, right? So perhaps a little, and then you could even go to what's the perspective of the background, you know. The succulent obviously not going to be alive out there in the winter, but you know, anyway, it's just kind of a cool background today. So none of those perspectives were lies, correct? They were all telling the truth of the world as they see it, from where they sit. And that is really what we're going to target in today. The first part of this directive really is going to be from your perspective. So draw your family as animals, or draw your family as a landscape, and make sure each piece kind of represents the character of that person. And you could use shapes, you could use plants. Let your imagination go wild. So, very simply here, I'm going to use some shapes just because I'm not going to take tons of time really fleshing this out for you. I just want to give a little example. Let me go through my colors. Alright, so one of my sisters, I'm going to go with this like olivey green because I feel like she's kind of an earthy person. She loves the outdoors, and what kind of shape should I? Oh, you know what? She really likes wearing bandanas, so I'm just gonna kind of give her some kind of a. I'm gonna represent her today just as these cool little earthy bandana. Okay. She also has dreads. Okay, maybe I'm gonna give her some dreads because that's just, you know, fun. So I guess I'm gonna represent her sort of with her hair. Her hair just kind of has a characteristic all of itself, and it kind of tells a little bit about who she is. And sometimes, you guys, I just can't help myself but add, you know, multiple colors in here. And again, art therapy, we're not becoming master artists. We are just using the tools at our disposal of shapes, colors, fun supplies to represent an emotion or a thought. Okay. So there's one of my sisters. Right. So this is, again, this is my family from my perspective, and I'm not drawing everybody, although I could put, I'll just put a couple little circles. So she's got 2 kids, and she's got a husband, and she's got a little dog. Not little, he's an Australian Shepherd, but she's got a dog. Okay, so this is, from my perspective, this is my one sister. Right. So I wasn't going to necessarily draw people, but go ahead and draw people if that helps make it easier for you. Alright, then I have a sister that lives out, and I'm going to do this one as a landscape. She and her husband live out in Colorado. So they've got the awesome mountains. They post pictures all the time of these glorious sunrises and sunsets. So part of her, I'm just going to draw her as a little landscape piece here. The sun and the mountains. Right, and maybe they're really loving skiing right now. So maybe I'll add some ski trails down the mountain. That looks kind of like water, but it's ski trails. All right. And then I have my brother who, and I'm going to draw it. He's just, this is kind of a plane. This is kind of a plane. Yeah. That'll work, right? You guys can all tell that's a plane. That really is the key point when you're drawing, is that at least you know what the symbols represent. Right? Okay. So this is, again, this is my family from my perspective. I'll just draw my siblings right now. But you can make this as detailed as you want. You could do your whole, like you could do everybody in your family, you could do your immediate family. I could have just done a scene, I could have just represented myself and my dogs and my boyfriend. And that would have been powerful. Or you could do it with somebody else. You could do your work environment. I'm going to draw my siblings and I. And let's see, if I'm looking at it from my point of view, I'm going to draw my dogs. And from the back. Because I feel like, if it's from my perspective, again, this is just my idea for how to draw this one. From my perspective, this is how I'll be seeing them from my perspective, and I'll be looking out past the heads of my dogs. Oh my god. I'll pick another color. Okay. So Buddy's kind of brown, and he's got the pointy ears. He's gonna look like a cat. Because of pointy ears. And he's got his little tail. Okay. So from my perspective, this is my family. And because I did, I feel like my one sister, she needs some colors. At least something kind of like a top. Okay. Okay, maybe feeling, because I feel like she's kind of protective of her family, so I'm going to put her arms around her family. And give her some legs. And some feet. Way too much detail. Was not planning on doing any of that today. I was just going to do the headband for her. Sometimes art is that way, you know? With these cool ink tints, and I'll just show you a little bit. You can just, I just add simple water, and you can kind of push the colors around. You could add some shadow without having to think about it too much, and they're nice because you just use them like pencils, so there's not that intimidation factor of, oh my goodness, I'm using paints, you know. And once it's settled in there, once it's dry, it's permanent. But it's fun because you get these nice shades of color that you wouldn't just get, that are a little smooth color. You don't get those necessarily with just using color pencils. So again, I realize that's a little bit of an artsy tip. Hopefully you enjoy that a little bit. Sometimes it's nice to know what materials do so that you can get your image a little bit more of how you want it to be, to represent your emotions and thoughts. So that's the only reason I share like more of the art tips. So, first step, thinking of your family or thinking about the person that you'd like to work on a relationship thing with. Someplace where maybe there's a little bit of a broken heart or there's tension. So. And then it would be fun, what I'll do later is I'll take a pen or a pencil and I'll write under my image what my family looks like from my perspective. You know, who's closer to who, what does it feel like to look at my family from this angle? What do I see? What do I note about each person? Then, this is where it can get really powerful. You could do a picture from each person's perspective. I would pick the person I'm struggling with the most. So if I was struggling with my sister the most, I would then on another piece of paper or just on this other page of my journal, draw this whole view from her point of view. Or if I was struggling and I wanted to gain, not necessarily to be struggling, you could just want to gain some more insights. If I wanted to pick this sister that's out in Colorado with her husband, I could draw a picture from what it might look like on this mountain. If I wanted to gain a better understanding of my brother's point of view, I could draw this whole scene from his point of view. And so you could do it for any part of your image. I just keep adding water because I'm really liking how it smooths out the Inktense pencil. I just like that look. It's a little watery color, and so sad for one. You can work on that to your heart's content, and write down what it looks like from your perspective. That's step one. And then step two is a new sheet of paper or just the flip side. Not literally the flip side. Don't do it on the back for a whole bunch of reasons, but the main one is that it's really nice to put these images side by side. It helps you gain some more insights and deeper understanding. So on this other side, I'm going to draw it from my brother's, just because I think it might be kind of interesting right now. I'm going to draw it from my brother's perspective of what our family might look like from his perspective. And today I drew my brother as an airplane, so I'm going to get the fun little aerial view. And so if I put myself in my brother's shoes up there in the plane, what does he see? Here is our family. All right, so thinking my brother, an airplane's view, what might our family look like? So those are some questions that you want to be asking yourself. So if I was my sister in the mountains, same idea. Sister in Minneapolis, same idea. What does our family look like from their perspective? So putting myself in their shoes, and today I'm picking my brother. And let's see, from his point of view, and again, this is guessing. You could totally, you could go ask the person more about their perspective to gain a better understanding. Can you guess what I'm drawing here? Very unscientific here, guys. This is his control panel. No idea what an airplane control panel looks like. I could totally look it up. I'm just gonna guess and do my representation right now of what an airplane control panel might look like. I'm thinking lots of buttons and lights and gadgets and gizmos and things that need to be paid attention to. Again, we're not going for reality, we're going for perception and what we think it might be like from what they sit. Oh, let me see. I'm going to add a little bit more here because from my dog's perspective today, I will tell you this. She is very obsessed with the yard because we have a fox that has been snagging rabbits. All right. From my brother's perspective, up in the airplane, maybe you guys can guess a little bit of what he might be seeing, what you think I might be drawing in as his perspective. Can any of you guess? Feel free to comment. That's one of the fun things about these lives is if you think you can guess how I am putting his perspective, let me know. See if you can get it. Yes. Again, artistic license, guys. It doesn't actually have to look like this in real life. You want your idea of it. Something just to represent. It's interesting that I just did evergreens all in brown. Right. All right. I need to stop overthinking this because I'm having a hard time talking while I do this, because now I'm getting into what does it look like from my brother's point of view. Obviously. So he also lives over here, so I think he'd be. Alright. So from my brother's point of view, he has the cockpit that has lights and dials and all these very important pieces of information in front of him. And I'm just going to smooth this out to show that he's inside. His point of view, this is what he sees in my mind's eye when he goes to work. And then there's the awesome skyline. He is always talking about the beautiful perspective and the views that he gets every day that he is flying. He gets these really gorgeous views of the world, put things in different perspectives. So when I fly, I remember seeing like all the patchwork roads and spots of lakes and the patchwork of fields and farms and forests. So that's part of what I was drawing in here. It's just this idea of what he sees on a day-to-day basis. The world looks very different, a very different perspective from up in the air than it does on the ground. feel like I want this framed out stronger. I'm just going to scribble some stronger stuff in there while some of it's drying. Sometimes it's hard to stop. Do any of you get into projects or making art or doing some thinking, and it's just sometimes it's a little bit hard to stop? I'm trying to force myself to stop. So I think my brother has a very, very different perspective on my family than I do. And I will not bore you with details, but in general, he sees the world really differently. And he sees people related maybe more by, I'm just going to go for my insights a little bit here, guys. I think he probably sees things a little bit more like geographical and factual than I do about where people are actually located. And you'll notice some of the symbols from my drawing today remained very similar. The mountains were very similar. It's from the perspective of an airplane. I drew him as an airplane because it quickly brings my brother to mind when I see airplanes or think of them. It's kind of interesting to me that I wanted to add all of my sister's family here, and it sort of represents the cityscape that I put for his, because my sister lives in the city. He also lives near the city in the same, in Minnesota with my sister, and so I drew hearts for his family because he would see that they are separated a lot. And then I live in the north woods of Wisconsin, and so I think for him the perspective would be I'm up here in the woods with my dogs and stuff. So you can have conversations. The cool thing about these perspective drawings is then you write your thoughts. For this part, I would be drawing my thoughts of my family, my perspective, how I see them, how I view them, my connections with each one from my perspective. And then I draw from his perspective, and it helps me get into his frame of mind and the way he sees the world and the way he might see his connection and relationship with each one of us, and even how the different pieces connect for him. So I hope that is helpful for you guys today. Again, in my newsletter, I will write the step-by-step on how to do this exercise, and then I will write a bunch of questions that will help you examine the different images that you draw and their connections and relationships between them, and how this can really help you have more empathy and start connecting with people in your family or your friend group or your work group together better. It can give you a lot of new ideas for questions or ways to interact with them as well. And all of that really does, as we gain perspective and insight about those around us, that's going to help us mend broken parts of our own heart, because we'll be connecting better, we'll be understanding better, we'll be seeing differently. And as it heals our heart, it will start healing relationships with it again. Comes back to healing our hearts. I'm also going to, in my newsletter, put a little link to these Dayspring cards, because as I was flipping through those, there are some great verses, there are great books and articles out there that help us get a different perspective on troubles in our life, fears, anxieties, even age and trials. So I'm just going to put this one out here today. We also rejoice in our suffering. Who thinks of that, right? This is a huge perspective shift for me today that I needed a reminder of. We rejoice in our sufferings because, here's that perspective shift, we know that suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character produces hope. So in just a few lines, we move our perspective from suffering to hope. So I hope this is a good little exercise. I hope you guys give it a try. Let us know what you think about it if you have questions. And I'll have lots of links in my newsletter again, which you can get at the link in my bio here, or my profile, or at hopeandhealingathome.com. You can sign up for my newsletter, and I will get you all those links and goodies in my newsletter. So thanks for stopping on today. I hope you have a great Wednesday, and enjoy shifting your perspective this week as a way to change how you're facing the day and how your heart is feeling with those around you. Take care.